Around the 13th century AD, a traveler arrived at an island. As he was exploring the island, he came across large monolithic temples, and outside one of the temples, he found a half-lady statue. The traveler was amazed by the architecture, so he looked around and saw the locals. He was confused. How could these ordinary farmers and fishermen make such big temples weighing tons? So he asked one of the locals, "Who is that half-lady?" The man told him, "Her name is Sansuna. She is a giantess." The traveler asked him, "Is that even real? Have you seen her?" The local told him, "No, no one has seen her. It's just a story that we have heard from our ancestors. They say she is the one who built these temples." But if this is a story, then who were the real builders? And when was it built? For thousands of years, Malta and its giant monolithic temples remained hidden from the world until the 8th century BCE when the Phoenicians discovered it. After the Phoenicians, the Greeks came, then the Romans, the Arabs, and finally the Christians. But none of these civilizations mentioned even a single thing about who built these temples or when they were built. And maybe when these much later civilizations couldn't find the answers, they just created the story about Sansuna in the medieval period. But the monolithic temples aren't the only mystery on this island. In 1902, an underground structure was discovered during construction. When archaeologists started examining the underground structure, they quickly realized this wasn't an ordinary tomb. The structure had multiple chambers, passages, and 3 different layers carved into solid rock. When the radiocarbon dating was done, they found it was carved around 4000 BCE to 2500 BCE. That means it is older than the pyramids of Giza themselves. The archaeologists examined each layer carefully. In layer 1, they found bones of 7,000 individuals, not just buried but kept carefully in chambers and niches, as if they were resting places. Then came layer 2. In layer 2, they found the sleeping lady figurine, which might have been some goddess of their culture. Along with the figurine, they found ritual spaces and the oracle room. The oracle room was carved in such a way that sound could be felt, not just heard. It also has certain frequencies which some researchers claim can alter human consciousness. But my biggest question was, why build an oracle room and ritual spaces beneath the dead people? Archaeologists then uncovered a 3rd layer, which is the youngest. But this layer was puzzling. It was an empty space with empty chambers, no text, no writings or inscriptions, and not even any statues. So what could this layer have been used for? Some archaeologists suggested that it was used for burying more remains, but my mind wasn't satisfied. Why carve downward and not sideways for more space? And if it was for burial, then why was there almost no burial activity? Why were no specific chambers and niches found like in layer 1? This might have been carved for something else. Archaeologists also found some temples on the ground. Surprisingly, one of the temples is aligned with the solstices, as if the temples worked as a solar calendar, which means the builders were carefully observing the sky. But all of this on a tiny island and not even a text or evidence about the builders. Well, that's the mystery. Recent research has found remains of a primitive group which date back to 8500 BCE. Some archaeologists say these people evolved and later built these temples. Could be. But another theory suggests that the cart roads on the island go all the way down to 27 meters beneath the water. And these ruts aren't natural. They're man-made, either cart marks or carvings made by humans. But how did they carve so deep in the water? The answer is that it wasn't always underwater. Before the last ice age around 10,000 years ago, this was all one giant landmass. So the theory says these temples were built before the Ice Age. Now this could be very much possible, but according to mainstream archaeology, this is not the case. They say the temples were built around 4000 BCE, but even if we accept the archaeological timeline, something still feels off. If these temples were built around 4000 to 2500 BCE, then what happened to them after 2500 BCE? Why were no other such large monolithic temples built or chambers carved after that period? It's almost as if after 2500 BCE, everything stopped and the builders vanished. Since we don't have an answer for who built it, when it was built, or what happened to these people, the only question left is, why build it? Malta is a tiny island with very limited resources. Why build something this sophisticated on a tiny island? The more I looked into Malta, the more I started noticing a pattern which was similar to other ancient civilizations. One of the temples was aligned with the solstices, suggesting the builders were carefully tracking the movements of the sun, and the chambers below were associated with the dead. And this wasn't unique to Malta. Egypt explored the afterlife. Mesopotamia honored the ancestors. Many ancient cultures devoted enormous effort to questions around death and the cosmos. The chambers below could have been a place for exploring the afterlife. Now, Malta isn't new in this case. In ancient Egypt, during the time of the Old Kingdom, they had many rituals for the dead to build connections and seek guidance and protection. Not just Egypt, even in ancient Greece, there were temples called necromantia to connect with the dead and the ancestors. Some stories say they even summoned them. Mesopotamia had many rituals for the dead and ancestors, including offerings and seeking guidance. They too believed that death was a journey to the other world. The way the chambers are structured, it does look like some kind of place for rituals of the dead and exploration of the afterlife. Now, there are many theories on the internet that this underground place is where giants or aliens lived. But honestly, I find it very hard to believe. Why would giants need to live inside a chamber and hide from humans? We don't have evidence for giants or aliens in Malta either. And that's when I realized something. Almost every theory surrounding Malta focuses on the builders. Were they giants? Were they aliens? Were they survivors of a lost civilization? But very few theories focus on what these people were actually doing here for centuries. Because whether the builders were ordinary humans or something else entirely, the structures they left behind are still here. The temples, the chambers, the burials, the ritual spaces, and all of them seem to point towards one question. Why were ancient people across the world so obsessed with the afterlife and the cosmos? So what do you guys think? Were they really exploring the afterlife, or is there some other possibility that I might have overlooked? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.